Free Iron is a South Korean film directed by the ever-controversial Kim Ki Duk. The film follows two characters who pretty much remain silent throughout. One is a drifter who, bizarrely, breaks into people's homes when they're not there and uses it as a temporary accommodation. What's even more unusual is he never steals nor alters anything unnecessarily. He does make contributions though, such as performing home improvements and fixing broken items. When he eventually leaves, it's almost as if no one were ever there. He's hardly ever caught either, one exception being when the second silent character comes in, a woman who is the victim of domestic abuse, and she catches him whilst, in typical Kim Ki Duk fashion, he's masturbating in bed. In an interview, Kim commented on why his two characters are mute, saying, quote, "It's not necessarily that the characters don't need words to communicate, but really it's a strategy to force the audience to fill in the blanks themselves. In some ways, they insert sort of their own dialogue throughout the film, imagining what they would say, imagining what might be said when there is silence in the film." End quote. This indicates two characteristics regarding Kim's cinema. Firstly, his affinity with silent cinema, at least in the sense of conveying emotions, primarily through facial expressions. Kim confirmed this by saying, "Laughter and crying are, I think, important elements of dialogue in film." Secondly, his film's silences are gaps for audience participation, forcing the spectators to not simply sit back and follow, but lean forward and create meaning. Steve Choe says, quote, "The silence comes to speak louder than words, taking advantage of cinema's monstrative capacities to show rather than simply tell. Insofar as the face externalizes internal thoughts and desires, the skin of the screen could be said to be phenomenologically continuous with the skin of these silent characters' physiognomies, for both are offered up to the spectator as exteriorities to be experienced, read, and felt." End quote. The film's silent characters are presented with a sense of purity and victimhood. The characters that speak often represent antagonism and hostility, or what Choe calls the masculinist voice of the law. This is evident in an interrogation scene where Kim's male silent character has been accused of crimes he did not commit. The police officers do not interpret his silence as that of vulnerability, but as suspicious of it, and repeatedly take advantage of his inability to defend his innocence. This scene can be interpreted as a metaphor for Kim's views on both himself and his critics. Over the years, he has been heavily criticised. Many have accused his films of being misogynistic, exploitative, gratuitous, and juvenile, especially feminist writers, and understandably so. For Kim, like his male character, he is considered to be brutish and isn't offered the possibility to overcome the strict moral attacks that manifest through his critics' glare. Even if, like me, you agree with Kim's critics, it still is interesting that he sees himself as the vulnerable party. His films are equivalent to his character's silent face, where, like the police in the interrogation scene, his critics are free to interpret and judge them however they like, and he, who no longer has a voice, is unable to defend them.